in 11 honors, and we're reviewing Huck Finn, questions 32 through 39. And the question is 19. Again, what's the purpose of this? It's to show, I think in the book anyway, what racism is. I'm going to read it, the question and then the quote. It says, Mark Twain took pains to depict Huck and Aunt Sally as kind and gentle and compassionate characters. And that's why it's so effective, because these are really likable people. They're Huck especially, but Aunt Sally, she's just a likable aunt. Everybody wanted an aunt like her, got a good sense of humor, can joke with Tom. Yet she's flawed, and the racism is what flaws her. Yet when Huck makes up a steamboat accident, in other words, he was given an excuse as to why, they think he's Tom Sawyer, and he's trying to figure out how to explain how he got there. And so he has to make up a steamboat accident to fit his story. This is the dialogue. It says, it wasn't, this is Huck, wasn't the grounding that didn't keep us back a little. We blowed out a cylinder head. So he's trying to explain why he arrived at a certain time, because the uncle there is trying to get suspicious, Silas, of his story. Because remember, Huck was moving from north to south and came into town that way. He's trying to figure out how he came from south to north. And he's trying to come up with a story, alibi, that has him coming from south to north. That's really not important, but it explains why they're talking about this. It wasn't the grounding. He said the ship was grounded, it couldn't move, but they blowed a cylinder in. And she says, good gracious, anybody hurt? Now this is Huck. He says, no, killed a slave. He even uses the N-word. The question was, anybody hurt? Nobody was hurt. Just a slave was killed. Would you consider that hurt? That's like the ultimate hurt, right? And then she says, well, it's lucky because sometimes people do get hurt. So it's clear in that statement, what is their, in general, what do they think of slaves?
They're not human.
They're not human, they're not fully human like the rest of us. And yet, I say that as a group, because we know Tom, that is Huck, loves Jim. He makes one exception, and that's Jim. You'd think, okay, if one slave didn't fit the stereotype, maybe none of them do. But he's not smart enough, or at least that's the way Mark Twain writes it. That's how racism works. Frankly, we won't get into all this, but I can remember knowing relatives. I hope your relatives aren't like this, but I mean, they were great people. I loved them, but they didn't mind using the N-word. I mean, if you were black, you wouldn't have appreciated that. You wouldn't have thought that person was that nice. I kind of worshiped the ground he walked on, but I think it was one of my grandfathers. I still loved him, and I just thought that's a flaw. That's not something we said at our house. And to hear older people talk like that, you'd well consider the age. But I knew people that would say things like that, and yet they were very kind to everybody. It's just like this blind spot. They just don't make the connection to individual people, say individual African Americans. They couldn't have been kinder, would have given the shirt off their back. But then you talk about a race as a whole, they have these disparaging things to say. It doesn't make any sense, but that's the way I think this thing works. Yeah.
What does that word mean?
Which one?
Great question.
What word?
The N-word?
I don't think it means anything. It's just, think of any kind of disparaging sound you could make to somebody. It's a sound. It doesn't have a meaning. It's no longer means anything. It's just like a profane word. All right, so I wanted you to see that, because if you don't get this, then you really don't understand the book. And if you don't get the fact that Huck loves one slave, he would give his life for him, but he still has these thoughts about slavery, like slavery is good and it's okay. And those things never get changed in the whole book. The book ends, and that's never resolved. So let's take a look at chapters 40 through 42. I'm just gonna go through some highlights here. We don't have to answer all of these, there's a lot of them. All right, so number one, just know the word evasion. I think we may have mentioned that, circle it, make sure that refers to the rescue of Jim. That was Tom's word, an evasion. I guess he means when you evade something, you try to avoid. So it's kind of their tricky way, their sneaky plan to rescue Jim is called the evasion. Number 2, 3, what ends up happening, is they want to leave, but Tom gets shot, and Jim won't leave him. To his credit, Huck has to leave, and go into town, but Jim won't leave him. And so Jim gives up his own personal freedom in order to save Tom. Now, the question is, do you think that's reasonable for someone to do that? I don't know. I think it is reasonable for some people to do it, I really do. But the average person wouldn't do it. Some of these details we just don't need to get into. It's all this 6, 7, 8, and 9. Remember that he even, to show how ridiculous the plan is, Tom already warned them about it. He wanted there to be a crowd there. He wanted them to be ready. So he made it 10 times worse. And so he alerts them that someone's going to try to break Jim out tonight, just so it'll make more exciting story. All right. We knew this. Look at number 12. Where was Pap all this time? Whatever happened to Pap? Yes.
Pap, Jim told Huck that Pap was the dead body on the steamboat wreck.
Right.
In the beginning of the story.
Since you know that, if you ever read it again, it's never a mystery to you. But I may have said that all along, that Pap was dead, and that's because I've read the whole book and I knew it was true. Look at number 14. Why does Huck feel that he has to light out for the territory right away? That's the way the book ends when he talks about lighting out for the territory. What does Huck want and need?
Purpose.
Yeah, what is his purpose?
To explore.
Yeah, to be free, yeah. He's just not going to be civilized. He said he's done that before. He's not going to go through it again. So, and that's actually that story I showed you in the magazine that's over there somewhere. Huck, or this, Mark Twain did write those stories, other stories about Tom and Huck. All right, so we'll skip 15. What do we learn about Jim's status at the end of the story? Yeah.
The course.
Okay, I'll be right there. What do we learn about his status? So he's been an escaped slave for the entire book. What do we learn about it at the end?
He was free.
He was actually free the whole time. Why is he free?
The other guy?
And she willed in her will, she freed him. So this whole thing, the whole time that Tom was helping Huck rescue him from the plantation, it was completely a game, because he was free the entire time. So do you have any questions about specific ones of these? I'm not really too interested in the details. I do want to tell you what else to study. The test will probably be kind of a standard. I've got one in front of me I've used before. There'll be some, well, first of all, you need to know the characters. So they're all in there, the names. You should review those. I can't expect you to reread the book, but you can reread the questions. You can look at the characters. So you need to know characters' names. and what they do in it. You need to know places, you know, like Jackson's Island, and I'm not too interested in, was it Popeville or Pikeville? I don't think that's all that important, which of those two things it is, but Arkansas would be a place. The Ohio River is a place, Cairo is a place that play important roles. St. Petersburg, that's the name of the town where Huck and Jim and Tom live. So knowing those, knowing, you know, they're in Arkansas, that's where the book ends. And know that Illinois is right across the river. Yes.
In chapters 40 through 42, could we go over the doctor? Because I was a little confused on.
Yeah, what specific questions? I don't think there's a lot of that I'm going to ask you, but just to clear it up for you.
Maybe question 18.
Okay, would you read it?
The doctor puts in a good word for Jim, recounting how Jim helped nurse Tom and never tried to escape. What reward do the men agree to give Jim for acting so well? What is ironic about the reward, and how does Huck feel about the doctor?
Yeah, I'm going to have to look at that. You know, they were going to hang him. They were going to hang Jim because the slave is always guilty. I'll have to get back with you. I'm trying to remember what they were gonna do for him. So I won't take up the time right now, but I'll look for it. All right, so going back to the quiz or the test, I would remember the book in terms of the places and the events that took place. It just Jackson's Island, all the things that happened there. On the river, there's certain things that happened there. The slave catchers took place on the river. The boat or the steamboat ran into them on the river. Those are a couple important things that happened there. I think it was Pikeville. Doesn't really matter. Popeville. That's where well, first of all, to back up, the Shepherdses and the Grangerfords. That 2 chapters. Remember them? Emmeline Grangerford. All that went on there. After that was the Sherburne and Boggs. Remember what happened with them. And then the circus, and then the Royal Nonsuch, which was the great con they had before they got to the Wilkses. So they left the Royal Nonsuch and they end up with the Wilkses. By the way, I have a quiz on that to get back to you, but there's several chapters that deal with the Wilkes, and make sure you remember those people that and all that happened there. And then they end up, the story ends at the Phelps plantation again. So that's kind of how I remember what happens in the story, those particular episodes leading up to the end of the book. See what else. I got some true and false here. If I use this, did this happen or didn't happen? It has to be completely true for it to be true, otherwise it's false. That's the funny thing about telling the truth. If you tell half a truth, it's completely, it's a lie. If you tell a quarter of a truth, it's still a lie, and that's the way it is with these true-false questions. If anything's not true about it, you gotta call it false. So there's gonna be some multiple choice. I do have a couple of, questions I'm gonna ask you specifically, and we've gone over those, so I'm not gonna tell you what they are, of course, but you can look at that list of topics that we did. They will come from that list, and you wrote about one of them. So you have 5 topics, you chose one of 3 topics to write about. So look at the other 4 on that list. And then finally, you'll forget to do this if you don't. Look at the PowerPoint about when, where Mark Twain was born, things about I remember his triumphs and his tragedies. You need to know some other book titles that he wrote. Yes.
Are you still grading the essay?
Yes. I'll try to I might not see you again, but next time I see you, if not this week, I definitely have those. You need to know what realism is and naturalism. You remember Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge? We talked about naturalism there. These are questions I'm probably going to ask you. So anything on that PowerPoint, and I might even ask you about Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge, just in general, not specific questions. And please know some other titles by him. Do you know what Mark Twain's real name was?
Like this.
Yeah.
Like Samuel Clemens?
yeah, Samuel Langhorne Clemens. So, unless somehow we're out for multiple days, even, again, if I don't see you again on Monday, that's plenty of time for us to get ready for a test on Wednesday. And I should have the papers done by then. And if they're good, we'll count them as a test. And so we possibly will have 3 tests, which brings us to I know we don't have a lot of time, but the last thing I wanted to do is look at the book, Red Badge of Courage, unless you have questions, and I'll try to find your answer, Lillian. Any other questions about the end of the book? A lot of details, obviously, I'm not holding you on, but just kind of know in general what's going on there. Yeah. All right, so would you get out the Red Badge of Courage? You even have some questions. I haven't checked anything here. I won't. We're trying to just finish up Huck Finn, but you should have questions. Yeah. We have about 15 minutes. It's not a lot of time, but you should have questions that look like that. And attached to them are yeah.
I never got one of those.
There's plenty of them over there. If you grab one. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I still
You need to. Anybody else need the question?
Actually, what, hey, Jackson, what does that look like?
Just a little bit of this. Thank you.
Okay, you get this? Yeah.
All right, we actually went over, let me back up. I don't know if we did or not, because we've done this with the other class, and I can't keep them apart. So I don't remember how much we read. I don't think it was a lot. I know we started it, so I don't need to repeat any of that. But did we answer any of these questions?
I got we finished number 3.
All right.
We answered one of them, I think.
All right, so we can, I think you're probably right about 3. We've probably done those 3, so, Ben, if you need any of them, let me know. So I don't know where we are. Anybody know exactly where we stopped? I thought I wrote this down, but I didn't. All right, so let me just review real briefly. The story begins with a report that the Army is going to that the Army is going to have to fight. It's going to finally fight after weeks and weeks of training. And so that's when Henry, we don't know his name yet, but that's his name. Henry starts to question himself. So I'm going to start at the top of page 5 with yes.
I think we left off at the bottom of page 6. After
That's
it says,
perfect.
I know how you are.
Very good. That's actually the last question, number 6. Question number 6. Did you say the bottom of the page?
Right after where it says, I know how you are.
All right, so when he hears that they're going to fight, he starts to question himself, and he thinks about how he got here. And remember, he enlisted, and he was all excited about war, as I was when I was a kid, before I knew what it was really like. You may have too. I read books, I saw movies. It was really exciting, and he's excited. So he wants to join. He does join. And remember, his mother didn't tell him what he wanted to hear. He wanted his mother to be broken up about it. She did have one tear running down her cheek, but she basically said, okay, just what, if you need socks, I'll fix your socks. Make sure you have good friends. Make sure you don't try to fight the whole war. So she gives him this practical advice. And at the end of that, she says, I know how you are. You know, she knows him better than he knows himself. So I'll put it up there. I've knit you a pair of 8 pair of socks, Henry, and I've put all your best shirts because I want my boy to be just as warm and comfortable as anybody in the Army. Whenever they get holes in them, I want you to send them right away back to me so I can darn them. It always surprises me that we've had a mail system in this country for centuries, I guess. I don't know who started it, but that a guy who lives in New York and he's fighting in Virginia can send back a pair of socks, and it actually get home, and they can send the socks back to Fredericksburg, Virginia, and he gets them. That's remarkable. When my wife's brother was in Vietnam, which is, last time I looked on the map, is like the other side of the world. They would bake cookies in Goldsboro, North Carolina, and mail them to Saigon, South Vietnam, and they would get there. They might be in a million pieces, but they would get there. I just think that's remarkable. Ships in the middle of the Pacific Ocean can write letters, and if you pass another ship, find out where the ship's going, that ship will take the letters to San Francisco or wherever they're headed, or have letters on the ship for you, because they know that these two ships are kind of following the same route in two different directions. That always astonishes me, that I guess anytime a thin little letter with one little stamp on it that I stick in the slot at the post office, which has a lot of money in it because I'm paying a bill, ever gets to Atlanta, Georgia, about the 50th floor of a 100-story building. That always is remarkable, but anyway, that's like, to me, a miracle. So always choose careful, and always be careful and choose your company. There's lots of bad men in the Army, Henry. The Army makes them wild, and they like nothing better than the job of leading off a young fellow like you, and ain't never been away from home much, and has always had a mother and a learning them to drink and swear. So her concern is his friends and the kind of character he is of. Keep clear of them, Henry. I don't want you to ever do anything, Henry, you'd be ashamed of or to let me know about. Just think as if I were watching you, and if you keep it in your mind always, I guess you'll come out all right. So, Walker, would you pick up there, page 7?
I lost my space.
You all,
That's
yeah,
not
must
cool.
always remember your father. Second.
Yes, always remember your father, too, child, and remember he never drunk a drop of liquor in his life, and seldom swore a cross oath. I don't know what else to tell you, Henry, excepting that you must never do no shirking, child, on my account. If so be a time come when you have to be killed or do a mean thing, why, Henry, don't think of anything except what's right. Because there's many a woman has to bear up just such things these times, and the Lord will take care of us all.
What does her educational level seem like to you?
Not great.
Right. There's nothing wrong with that. No, we're not criticizing her.
Just didn't have much education growing up.
It's just, that's where he's coming from, and those are the people that fight wars. Average people, always have. Keep reading.
Don't forget about the socks and shirts, child. I put a cup of blackberry jam with your bundle, because I know you like it above all things. Goodbye, Henry. Watch out and be a good boy. He had, of course, been impatient under the ordeal of the speech. It had not been quite what he expected, and had borne it with an air of irritation. He departed feeling vague relief.
That's good. Sarah.
Still, when he had looked back from the gate, he had seen his mother kneeling among the potato pits. Her brown face uprise was stained with tears, and her hair of corn was quivering. He bowed his head and went on, feeling suddenly ashamed of his purpose. From his home he had gone to the seminary to bid adieu to many schoolmates. They had thronged about him with wonder and admiration. He had felt the gulf now between them and his world with calm pride. He and some of his fellows had the dawn blue, were quite overwhelmed with privilege for all of one afternoon, and it had been a very delicious thing they had striven. A certain light-haired girl had made vivacious fun
Or vivacious.
at his martial spirit, and there was another with dark another and darker girl whom he had gazed at steadfastly, and he thought she grew demure
Demure means quiet, reserved.
and sad at sight of his blue and breast. And as he walked down the path between the rows of oak, and he turned his head and detected her at a window. Watching his departure as he perceived her, she had immediately begun to stir up. Though through the high tree branches of the sky, he had seen a good deal of flurry and haste in her movement as she changed her attitude he so often thought of.
I don't know if this, yeah, question number 5. There are these two girls, like, well, you might want to do this someday. You get a uniform of some kind, you want to wear it to school. I did that. I remember one time I specifically did that, and now I think back how childish that would probably was. But you want to identify with some organization you're in. Maybe it's a team. I understand. I was proud of that when I was. So he goes back to school, and there's a blonde girl and there's a dark-haired girl, and the blonde girl laughs at him, makes fun of him. The dark-haired girl kind of admires him, at least he thinks so. So in his head, he kind of gravitates toward the girl who is, admiring him, or at least he thinks. He doesn't know.
Why'd she laugh at him?
It says she was laughing at his martial spirit. Like, I don't know. I mean, what makes people laugh? I mean, sort of in derision. They're just kind of making fun of him. Maybe she didn't like him. But that's not what he wanted to hear. He liked the girl. Oh, see this one over here? That's the one he kept thinking about. To me, and did you notice the word gulf, G-U-L-F? It said that he now felt a gulf between them and him. So remember the way the book is organized. At the beginning of the story, he feels separated from everything. What does he do when he finds out they're going into battle? He removes himself from everybody. He goes by himself into the tent to think. This is another example, except one that he liked. Now he felt better, superior to these people. He goes back, look, I'm in the army now. You're just a kid in school now. And so there was this gulf between him and them, and that's what the whole first part of the book is about, his being separate from things. Would you like to read, Hartley?
On the way to Washington, his spirit had soared. The regiment was fed and caressed at station after station, until the youth had believed that he must be a hero. There was a lavish expenditure of bread and cake, meat, coffee, and pickles and cheese. As he fastened the smells of the girls who had been complimented by the old men, he had felt growing within him the strength to be by deeds of arms.
So he feels like a hero. Why? He hadn't done anything, but why does he feel like a hero?
Because he's cool.
Giving compliments.
Yeah, because they're treating him like a hero. So before he even goes into his first battle, he's got this false image in his mind that, man, I'm pretty important. I'm a hero. He's far from it, but Jeff.
After complicated journeying through many pauses, we have come months of monotonous life at the camp. He had had to believe that real war was a series of death struggles with small time in between the sleep and meal. But since his regiment had come to the field, the army had done little but sit still to try to keep warm. He was brought then gradually back to his old ideas. Greek-like struggles would be no more. Men were better or more timid. Secular religious education had to face the throat-grappling instinct the world's firm finance held in check the passions. He had grown to regard himself merely as a part of a vast blue demonstration. His prominence was to look out as far as he could for his personal comfort. For recreation, he could twiddle his thumbs and speculate on the thoughts which must agitate the minds of the generals. Also, he was drilled and drilled in her youth, and drilled and drilled in her youth. The only foes he had seen were some pickets along the riverbank. There were a suntan philosophical lot who sometimes
Yank, the other head, informed in, "You're a right dumb good fella." This sentiment floating to him upon the air made him temporarily regret war. Just a couple of things here as we finish. He was disappointed that they didn't go right to war. They spent weeks doing the same monotonous drill. So nothing's happened, and his expectations of war have been disappointed. So we're gonna pick this up. You don't have to, we'll pick it up tomorrow. I should assume we're gonna be here tomorrow. But you may be asked to look at Google Classroom, so please check Google Classroom.
There's a 42 at the top.
Yeah, I need it.